Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how the government's Brexit planning isn't joining up in the middle through the medium of their woeful conduct on the subject of pig farming, a British industry that is fading fast. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So when it comes to the Brexit impact on farming, you've essentially got two issues, I suppose. As a result of our exit from the single market and customs union, it's now harder to sell produce to Europe. Yes, the government keep talking about these pork markets. Don't worry, I'm going to point out how moronic that is in a bit. But the second problem is, again linked to our exit from the single market, but also in conjunction with an unfit for purpose immigration system, we cannot get the labour needed into our food supply chain. Now, when it comes to the issue of workers, it's a little different for meat and crops. For crops, the problems are largely based on the farms themselves. There are issues in production as well, in processing rather, but it's really on the farms. Seasonal workers especially are down, and the government are not allowing enough provision in their immigration system to manage. So because farmers couldn't get as many crops picked, many of them just planted fewer for this year. But that still means we have to import more for ourselves. But for meat, it's different. The main shortages there are in processing. This was highlighted last autumn with a chronic shortage of butchers. So pig farmers especially were able to rear the pigs, no problem. However, there weren't enough butchers to process them. The end result was tens of thousands of healthy pigs culled. But this was not because there was no demand for the products, but because there wasn't the capacity in the supply chain to get them from farm to supermarket shelf. So after initial shortages on the shelves, we just imported more. A lot more of the pork products that we had on our shelves leading up to Christmas came from the EU than would ordinarily be the case. The same applied to other meat products as well, but I'm focusing on pork here. And it's just one way in which Brexit has actually made us more reliant on EU imports than was the case when we were inside the group. The government did also grant some short-term visas for butchers, at a push, as well as other essential workers in the supply chain, in order to, very late in the day, boost production in Britain. So they were told about the problems months in advance. You need to do this. No, we're not going to do that. You need to do this. We're not going to do that. Problem hits. Right. We've got a problem now. We're not going to do it. We don't care. A few months later, the problem becomes chronic. Okay, we'll issue a few short-term visas. But as they were short-term visas and the core problem hasn't gone away, it wasn't just an issue with last year. The problem's still here now. That problem hasn't been solved. British pig farming is in as big a mess as it was last year. The government only acted at the 11th hour to avoid the damaging headlines, but did not prevent tens of thousands of pigs being killed for no purpose. Then we get this statement on social media from Victoria Prentice, who is a junior farming minister, who said, and I quote, "I am pleased to announce that we will launch a review of supply chain fairness in the pig sector. More details to come. We will continue to work with the sector on the immediate challenges they are facing." So let's break that down. She's talking about introducing bureaucracy, first of all. Wasn't Brexit supposed to be about reducing bureaucracy? So here we're getting a load of extra bureaucracy, which wasn't needed before. And it's not that the EU used to deal with that bureaucracy and now we have to do it. No, that bureaucracy just didn't exist before, when the pig farming sector was doing fine. The second thing she says is more details to come. In other words, they've decided to go with a bureaucratic process to deal with this problem, which was brought to light a year ago, and they haven't even sorted out the details. They've decided they need a new scheme. They've even thought of a name for their new scheme. Oh, put the word fair in there. People like that. Makes it sound like we're going to help. But that's it. They can't actually say anything about it because they haven't worked out what this scheme is. Then she says that her department will continue to work with the sector on the immediate challenges that they face. So she acknowledges that the challenges are immediate. We're not talking about a problem that's going to happen in a year's time. We're not talking about a problem on the horizon, for which your not yet finalised bureaucratic scheme could in theory still be ready for. She understands that the problems are occurring right now. In fact, they've been in place for a long time. But here the minister is showing full awareness that the problems are right now, and yet her solution isn't ready to go. How on earth is that working with the sector on immediate challenges? Oh yeah, we've thought of a name for a scheme that at some unspecified point in the future may be of help. If there are any pig farmers left in the country, that is. Frankly, it's quite clear that their plan has been for farming in general for some time. hide behind opaque bureaucratic systems while the industry collapses, and then sell off the land to corporations who will use it for intensive farming purposes, like the countries outside Europe we are chasing trade deals with. But then we come to the other side of their Brexit plans for farming. The past couple of days I've talked about the Conservative Party conference in Blackpool. They don't normally have one at this time of year. It was a little odd. But at the same time, the Scottish Conservatives were having their conference, and they do normally have it at this time of year. This is their usually timed conference. And it has not escaped people's notice that Boris Johnson has knackered the Scottish Conservatives by scheduling his own conference on the same days. But the Scottish conference still went ahead, and in amongst the reports on the event in the National Scot, I saw this little gem on Brexit benefits. There's lots of very exciting changes that we can embark on. For example, the most recent new one was Chile. Chile has just recently allowed pork products for the first time from the UK. A huge market for lamb and beef exports has opened up, something that wasn't happening when we were in the EU. Now, several things immediately here. The first is that the EU has a free trade deal with Chile. We were apparently not exporting pork products to Chile, which we had access, we had access to this trade agreement. We could have done, we just didn't. I've not been able to find the specific reason because the trade agreement itself, I've checked it, has provision for pork products. In fact, Spain and Germany have been exporting pork products to Chile for some time. Germany exports quite a lot. So the suggestion that we were unable to is complete nonsense. If we weren't doing, it will be because we had better options for export markets at the time. But the point now is that although we're being told we can export pork products to Chile for the first time, we're also going to have tariffs slapped on them. So in the EU, we could have exported pork products without tariffs. Now we can export them and there will be tariffs. I think 6% is what I've seen. Yay, Brexit benefit. But the other thing to point out is that this Scottish Tory was trying to sell the benefit of a weak deal with Chile as somehow being better than being in the EU, even though the EU have a full free trade agreement with them. And in addition, during the Brexit process, the EU also agreed trade deal with the Mercosur countries of South America. That represents import markets worth 3.5 times as much as Chile, for whom, like I say, they also have a free trade agreement. It's beyond stupid, this. But let's ignore for now the fact that the EU have a free trade deal with Chile and we don't. Let's also ignore the fact that other EU countries export a lot of pork to Chile, so we could have done as well. What on earth is the good of talking about these new pork markets opening up around the world when we cannot even meet demand for existing markets, including our own? Like right now, pig farmers can rear their pigs. I won't say no problems because like every other business, their costs will have massively increased. But if they can make the figures work in their favour, there is no major barrier that I know of that stops them rearing as many pigs as before Brexit. This is unlike with the crop farmers who, if they can't get the people to pick them, might as well not bother. But they cannot then sell those pigs on because we don't have enough butchers. This lack of butchers meant that we couldn't even meet the demand for pork products for our own and other existing markets. Like when the government talks about opening up markets to British exports, it has to be on the basis that we have the capacity to supply those markets, that we increase production to satisfy the extra demand, export more, make more money, shift the balance of trade in our favour. Brilliant. But when our Brexit government talks about opening up pork markets, what are they talking about? Oh, this deal with Chile, which is weaker than the one the EU have, is somehow going to let us sell £20 million worth of pork to them over 5 years. For 5 years, that's £4 million a year on average. I mean, apart from the fact that £4 million a year against the £1.4 billion pork industry in the UK is worthless, where do we have the extra supply to do this? If we go flogging £4 million worth of pork a year to Chile, we'll just be taking it away from another existing market, maybe even our own. That's what we call robbing Peter to pay Paul. And this is what I mean about Brexit planning not joining up in the middle. They talk about opening up pork markets. So you're increasing, what they're saying is we're increasing the demand, but the supply has got lower. How does it make sense to increase the demand when you're making the supply lower? We don't have the pork products to sell to these emerging markets. Our supply chain is knackered because of a lack of skilled workers, which the government is doing nothing about. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.